G'day guys, I'm ChampChong and welcome to this special edition video where today I compare the PlayStation 4 controller and the Xbox One controller. So yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty, so here we have both of the next-gen controllers. We have the PlayStation 4 controller and the Xbox One controller. Now let me just put them like this so you guys can clearly see. Now, one thing I will point out is that this is the Day 1 edition, as you can see. So I'm going to swap it around just quickly with this one, which is just a standard one that you can get with any console or just on the shelf, because this one has a chrome thing, and it's just for the aesthetics, the looks of it, and also it has some writing on there, as you can see, compared to this one, which doesn't. Now I'll just move that to the side and put them here. As you can see, the size comparison I'll quickly just do. They're basically the same size. The PlayStation ends up being slightly wider, but it does feel great, and so does the Xbox One. They both feel great, and that's one thing I will point out. Oh, just before I do, they're both roughly the same. This is a little bit sleeker, slimmer compared to this one, but they both pretty much feel the same in your hand because the way they're built, especially me with large hands, and that's one thing I wanted to point out. I have large hands, so my hands may be different to yours. Everyone has different hands, pretty much. One thing I wanted to point out is that I just don't have a preference between these controllers. Both are great. Microsoft and Sony have created both really, really good controllers. I prefer neither, as I said. They're just really, really good. Both are huge improvements over last generation, as you can see. This one has a bunch of new features like a light, a touchpad, it even has a speaker on it, a share button. This one, it has really, really good triggers. Like, I'll get to that in a second. The triggers on this are incredible. Plus, the thumbsticks and the D-pad have both been improved quite a bit, especially the D-pad. It's incredible for fighting games or anything like that. If Gears of War on 360 back in the day had D-pad like this, oh my god, I'd be even a better player. But this one, I'll get to first now, while I put this one to the side, because the PlayStation 3 has quite a few improvements that I want to touch on. And the first one I want to say is the overall build of the thing. Look at this, it's two-toned, it's like got some grip on it, which is incredible. It's just, it feels great in the hand. When I felt this at E3 about 6 months ago, I was like, holy shit, it just fits in your hand perfectly. I got large, big man hands. It just fits, like, it just, I don't know how to explain it. It just fits in your hand. You've got your D-pad here, you've got your buttons here, you got your square, you got your triangle and all that, and then you got your thumbsticks here, and now the triggers are like way better. Like, seriously, if you played the PlayStation 3, if you loved those triggers, I don't know what the hell was wrong with you, because those triggers sucked. They actually went the opposite way instead of going out like that, so your fingers didn't rest on them, they kind of slipped off. I actually had to purchase trigger extenders on the PS3, but on the PS4, these triggers are incredible. Also, the shoulder buttons here, the L1, R1, are still pretty damn great. And that's part of the controller I want to talk about. But now, I want to touch on some of the new stuff that has been added. Because we've always had triggers, we've always had D-pad, we've always had that kind of stuff. But now there's this touchpad. This touchpad's pretty cool, and since it's on every single controller, it's going to be awesome, because developers for first-party games, you know, exclusives on the PlayStation side, are going to be building cool stuff for the touchpad. Like in the Playroom, you can swipe up and you got like those little guys that fall out and all that stuff. We've seen that kind of stuff. And just imagine the future of that. But that's a pro. Now, a con that I find is this light bar. As cool as it is, like you can see your health and all that stuff. Well, you can't really see your health because you're playing like this. You're not looking at the bottom of your controller because it's green when you've got health, you know, all that kind of stuff in Killzone. The reason I say it's a con, not just because you can't see it, is mainly because not everybody has a camera. You know the PlayStation camera that's selling for about 70 bucks Australian price? Not everyone has one. I purchased one because I wanted to make it fair comparison because the Xbox One has Kinect. But with not everyone having a camera, it's going to be just like the PlayStation Move on the PS3. The reason I say that is because with the PlayStation Move, what happened was not everyone had it. So there wasn't a huge install base. It was a tiny install base of the PlayStation Move. So developers didn't even focus on the Move, and it kind of just became a thing on the side. One thing with the light bar compared to this controller is that this actually has a light bar, this doesn't. However, when you've got your Kinect turned on, and since everybody has Kinect, if you have your Kinect turned on, there's actually two little red lights that flash and communicate with your Kinect. So if I'm playing the game, what do you call it, Dead Rising 3, and there's a zombie on me, I just push him off like that. Like, all I have to do is that, and it's gonna push the zombie off instead of doing a button combination or something. So with that sensor being there, connecting with the Kinect, you're gonna have that extra feature. And with everybody having a Kinect, that means that the developers will bother actually putting cool features in with motion with the controller and stuff like that. Now, with the PlayStation, with this one, I think it still has the 6 axes in there. I'm not too sure, but I feel like those extra little features that the light bar would give you aren't going to be there in every game, because developers are going to be like, not everybody has an eye camera, you know, not everyone has a PlayStation camera. So that's a bit of a con. However, I want to get to another pro, and that pro is this share button. This share button is awesome. In just a few seconds, I can press it, select X, and pretty much be on Twitch TV, which I did yesterday. And the Twitch quality is amazing. I'm going to get to that in another video when both consoles have Twitch streaming, or both have streaming capabilities. But the Twitch streaming on this is incredible. I do it, bam, in a couple seconds, I'm live on Twitch, which is incredible. One thing I want to touch on now is the thumbsticks and this little speaker. As I mentioned earlier, it does have a speaker, and I like the speaker. However, I don't see it becoming a thing for the future. And the reason I say that is, if you look back to the Wii also had a speaker on the controller. Now this speaker is way better than that one, but I feel like it's just a little bit annoying. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It's cool that it's there, it's cool for some fun games and stuff, but every now and then you're like, I don't know if it should be there. It was cool, like, just for a few moments, and then you're like, oh, it's kind of a gimmick, just like this light's gonna be with the health bar, you know? But now let's get back to, because I said I was going to touch on these thumbsticks. These thumbsticks feel great. When you're turning and stuff in games, like first-person shooters or even racing games or anything like that, you're going to be having a great time, because it just feels great when you're pushing it, you know, when you're going like that, you know, it feels great. But it doesn't have a proper grip on it. Now, they are improved of the previous ones that were just like a dome on the previous controller, but it just feels like they're kind of too rubbery compared to like this controller, which I don't know if you guys can see. It does have like a grip on there, which is incredible. Like for traction, it keeps you on there. It feels great. But when you're in a game, these feel like they're actually doing a better job of recreating your movements into a character. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, as I transition to this controller from the PlayStation 4 controller, I want to touch on the battery life of each. I've actually been using this one. This one's just for when friends come over, but I've been using this one since launch, so about 2 weeks, I'd say. Wait, what is the date today? Yeah, I'd say it's over a week at least. Now, one thing I will touch on with this controller, I've only charged it about twice in that time, and I've been playing a ton of NBA 2K, a ton of other games like Rise, just a bunch of games. I've only charged it twice. With this controller, I've already charged it once. Like on top of the initial charge that I gave it, and I've only been playing it for over a day. So, and that's probably like 10 hours. So I'm kind of worried that like the features of the speaker, the touchpad, the light bar, all that stuff is factoring into the built-in battery, and I'm worried about that. I'm not too sure how that's gonna work. Like, I just don't know like if the battery's gonna die out quicker because of all these extra things. But it could be a factor. With this one, however, you've got a built-in battery, just like on the 360, or not a built-in, like you got double A's that you can put in there, but I've got a plain charge kit. So if your controller or the battery pack dies, like eventually, because all battery packs get a certain amount of charge, eventually you're gonna end up buying a new battery pack for about 20 bucks, 15 or 20 bucks, which is what I'd done on previous gen with the 360. I used to buy a bunch of these battery packs. Now, with this one, let me just move that out of the way. With this one, with the PlayStation 3, what happened was, I had to actually purchase a whole new controller when the charger just died in it, it just wouldn't charge anymore, when I had to just constantly have the cable plugged in. So that's kind of a worry. But I actually prefer the battery pack being in there, even though when the controller does have too many charges and runs out of charges, you have to pay 80 bucks for a new controller. But I prefer that because actually it does last longer in the long run compared to this one, even though the charge may not be as long in the short term. Anyway, both are great. As I said, I don't have a preference, but I've talked enough about this controller. Let me put that one to the side and now talk about this controller, its pros and its cons. Alright, so before I get into any of the pros, I want to touch on the cons of this controller. There aren't too many, but there are a couple. Now, I'll bring in this controller, which is the 360 controller, and you guys can clearly see it. It's the 360 controller. It's silver, and it just looks different. Okay, it's not completely different, but yeah, you guys can tell. Now, one thing I loved about this controller is that when I played, I could simply just go bam, you know? I could simply just press that home button or the guide button, whatever you want to call it. Now it's called the home button, but before it was called the guide button. I could simply just quickly press it. I didn't have to do much work. With this one, I know it's not a big deal, but it just feels annoying that I have to like move my entire hand across the controller. And I've got giant hands, as I mentioned. With this one, yeah, it was just really simple. They still feel the same and everything, but I feel like it's kind of making you want to use Connect more, you know, like all the voice commands and stuff. But that's one con. With the button being up there, it's kind of annoying. I want to touch on another con, and that's the bumpers, the left and right bumpers. Because with the 360, you had this. It was just you playing, and you could use like your knuckles. Like that's what I did at least. And let me just move that controller out of the way. When I played, it was just like my knuckles would just rest on there, and it just felt easy to click. There was no like pressure to push it, because I could be shooting them quick, throw a nade or something, you know? But with this controller, I feel like I don't have that same power, or I have to like push harder. Like it's actually like you're pushing a lot harder than before, because now you can't just, it's not the same. It's like a slight difference, and it's just annoying that they changed that. It's a little too clicky. So that's a couple things I don't like about this controller, is that has been moved up there, and now these are up here. But some pros about this controller are definitely the thumbsticks and the D-pad. Just the D-pad, it's a lot better. I mentioned this earlier. The D-pad is a huge improvement over this one. These just have this traction sort of like grip on them, and it just feels great when you're playing a game. So that's a huge improvement. Finally, the thing I really want to touch on about the controller of the Xbox One is the triggers and the rumble, or the vibrations that it has in the triggers and the entire controller. Because the triggers and the new vibration system is ridiculously awesome. Seriously, like when you're pressing these triggers in just by themselves, they feel amazing. Like look at the shape of them. They're huge too. They're like, your fingers just rest on them perfectly, so that, you know, and when they just feel floaty, like you just feel amazing. It just, I don't know, it just feels great when you're pressing them. They're better than these triggers, even though these triggers are a huge improvement over the PlayStation 3, and they're really great triggers. But these ones, I don't know, I guess Microsoft were just like, we have to make great triggers. And yeah, so these are really, really awesome. And especially when I'm playing like Forza, and you just feel the vibration coming through here, but then you feel it like on your left tires through here, then on your right tires through here, and it just feels great. And also another thing I want to point out is when I'm playing NBA 2K, like 2K14, when my guy dribbles with the left hand, every time it bounces, I feel a vibration through this entire side, and even through the trigger. Like you feel it in the trigger. So when he dribbles and bounces on the left, it goes through here. When it's on the right, it's on this. And that just feels amazing, like you're actually part of the game. It gives you that sort of, it's immersive. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels really good. So that's a huge pro with this controller. I feel like they've improved the entire inside. They kind of messed up on the bumpers and this button. This isn't huge because it doesn't really fall into gameplay stuff, but this is kind of annoying. It's a con, but the entire, like, the hardware on the inside is ridiculously incredible. So this is a big improvement over the 360 controller, with one downside really here and the slight downside with that button there. But it's an improvement. So is this controller. This controller, let me move that out of the way. This controller is a huge improvement over the DualShock 3. It's ridiculously awesome also. So both controllers are a massive improvement. I don't really have a preference. Both fit into my hand perfectly. I think the only thing that you're gonna find is if you like having like the analog sticks there, or if you like them having them like this offset, you know, it's going to be a preference of that, I think. Also, maybe it's a muscle memory thing if you think X is there instead of there, or if it's you have A and B and all that stuff. It's going to be a muscle memory thing, and also your preference on where you like these being, you know, that's all it's going to really be. I'm happy with either one. I don't mind either one. I don't think I have a preference. Last generation, it was definitely the 360 controller over the PlayStation 3 controller. The PlayStation 3 was just too small, the controller was, and the triggers sucked. But this time around, both are amazing. Both feel great when you're playing different varieties of games. Both fit to my giant hands perfectly. So no matter what console you buy, you're probably going to be happy with both controllers. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any other questions. Definitely follow me on Twitter. I will be answering questions on there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please smack the like button. Yeah, smack it. Just bam, smack it if you enjoyed it. And yeah, leave some comments down below with some questions and I'll try and answer them. Also follow me on Twitter as I mentioned, and I'll see you guys in the next video.